An Eye for an Eye podcast contains subject matters that many may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. All right, everybody, we are back with your favorite podcast, Eye for an Eye. I'm here. My name is Lisa. As you all already may know, if you don't, welcome. My name's Lisa, and I'm here with my co-host, Matt.
Hello, everyone. We are back.
So today's case is going to be so exciting, and Matt and I have talked about continuing this conversation pretty much forever because it's one of those kind of cases.
Still
really
giving us chills type of cases.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to quickly go over today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/eye4eye-pod. There's over 180,000 180,000 titles to choose from your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So check them out, you guys. Also, if you haven't already, please check out our Patreon page. It's something that you can do to support us. We take your support any way we can get it. However, this would just help out with the financial bits of this podcast. It does take time, and any little bit helps. Really, as little as $1 a month, which is 3 cents per day, could make the world of difference for us. And there's some really cool perks on there, which we'll post about later.
Welcome back tonight, everybody. We have, like we said, one of our most probably controversial, heart-wrenching, just graphic, awful cases, but at the same time, it's driven so much media frenzy, and it's still talked about and conversed on every level from podcasts to there are, news stations still running stories on. Of course, we're talking about Casey Anthony.
Tot Mom.
God, I hate that term. I hate that term.
Nancy Grace.
What's so special for us about this particular case is we have a very special guest tonight. We'd like to welcome Jeff Adamek. Jeff, say what's up to everybody.
What's up, everybody?
Thank you, sir. Just a little bit about Jeff. We want to give a background. Jeff spent 18 years in the United States Army Special Operations as a U.S. Army Ranger and a Special Forces Green Beret. So, obviously, we want to thank Jeff for his service.
Yes.
First and foremost, just some of the commendations that Jeff received. Awards from 6 combat deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan included the Silver Star, 4 Bronze Stars, an Army Commendation Medal for Valor, and a Purple Heart. Are you fucking kidding me? I
also got a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and how many 14 Dr. Peppers when you met JFK, right? Or
14 Dr. Peppers. I
got the pay. I love that you knew exactly what I was talking about. I certainly appreciate that.
I don't know shit ever. This is, okay, so really quickly, every single time I do anything, Matt's been my best friend for years. He quotes movies in every word he says is a movie quote.
That was
and
Forrest
I've
Gump.
seen all of these movies, but I can't quote them. I've seen Forrest Gump thousands of times.
Jeff, back me up here. She should know this one.
You should. Forrest Gump. You should know.
Forrest Gump.
It's not like he pulled. It's not like he pulled out a Big Lebowski.
Right. If I had, I would be impressed if she knew it. But honestly,
women can get away with not knowing the Big Lebowski ones.
But not Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Jenny. You should know all.
I know Jenny.
She knows the dude. Like a box You've seen the dude before, though. Come on. You had to.
The dude wants to buy.
Oh my God.
Have I?
You've seen Big Lebowski, right?
I don't know. We're getting so off topic about my movie knowledge.
We're way off track here.
I watch scary movies.
Right. So, after retiring from the military, Jeff worked as a special operations armed civilian contractor and as an anti-terrorism team officer for the Department of Homeland Security. So, you worked for the government shortly for a while after your deployments, and then also... So how many years were you actually then overseas? That 18 years you spent, how much of that time overseas would you estimate, Jeff?
Out of 18 years, I probably spent, in total, probably about 4 years overseas.
Wow.
That's amazing, man. Jeez.
Who gives me the willies?
I know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, man. But, and you're currently working as an IT professional and hosting the Changing Hearts and Minds podcast on the Change Your Point of View podcast.
Which is amazing. You guys need to check it out.
Everybody, this is the
and
first
there's so many episodes
plugs
to listen to.
Yeah, this is the first of many plugs. Jeff, we're going to be plugging you from here on out. Because,
probably for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, forever. Because everybody, please check out the Changing Hearts and Minds podcast. It's so worth your time. I listened to an episode today. I need to get
the recommendation
on where
I couldn't
to start,
find it.
There's so many. I mean, we got to dive in and really take some time, but there are so many episodes
on the network.
Well, I mean, the thing is, as a network, there's a different host every day of the week. So my show is the Wednesday show, but there are 4 other shows. So if you're out there and you're a veteran and you want to get into knowing what you need to do when you get out to be successful, then you listen to the Change Your POV, which is the flagship show. If you have mental health problems, or not mental health problems, but you're looking to how to deal with people with mental health difficulties, or understanding soldiers with PTSD and everything. And so, full disclosure, I got out of the military diagnosed with PTSD and a very severe back and brain injury. So I was one of the success stories that I got the help that I needed and was able to be able to be a successful person once I got out of the military. There's a lot of guys, as we all know, who are not. So the Headspace and Timing show is for things like that. And then my show is just the special operations point of view on things and the military history and leadership and team building and just how to live life as a warrior, even though you're not serving in a uniform. It doesn't matter if you're in a uniform or not. Warrior is a state of mind. It's not a job title.
I absolutely love that.
Amen. Love that, man.
I love it. And you're absolutely right. There's so many people out there who have not gotten the help they need or don't feel like they have the voice that
Right.
to speak out on it. And I think it's so important what you're doing because you're showing people, yes, you can make a life after, serving. You don't have to fall victim to, your own mental health. You can make yourself something. You can be successful. And there is help out there for these people.
There's quite a bit of help out there. Guys are just they have to get past their own worries about what other people are going to think about them.
Right.
Because just being batshit. I mean, you were batshit crazy to begin with. That's why.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we're all a little batshit crazy.
Lord knows I am.
And having the terrible things being inflicted around you going on doesn't obviously improve your mental health stability. I think at this point, like you said, there's so many taboos and there's so many structures around what's supposed to be, especially for a man, but for a military man. And I think, some of our strongest people, it can take after all that so many people go through, it can take anybody and tear them down to almost nothing. So we
that's a true story right there.
And we need to promote more stability, like more ways to get people back to stability from, like you transition out. Thank God, like you said, you got some help that you needed. How many people just fall through the cracks, man? I mean,
there's far too many people who let themselves become statistics. And yes, there is a thing to be said about having others help you get there, but really, like the point of my show and a lot of the guys in the network is you identifying yourself, the need for some help, and not being ashamed of it, because there's nothing in this world that any of us do without having other people around us either help us out or help us up. We're not talking about handouts, we're talking about hand ups.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Get out there and help somebody get up on their own feet and deal with stuff on their own. But one person I would definitely never put a hand out to at this point is one Booze Hag Casey.
I love that you keep going. That's amazing.
Booze Hag is literally the new.
Oh, I hate her.
That is so good. I can't.
Just so your listeners are aware that I am the most politically incorrect guest.
We welcome it with open arms. We welcome it.
We
with
embrace
open
it, my friend. We embrace it. By all means, be politically incorrect. I enjoy the hell out of it.
Absolutely.
I'm all for it. So,
absolutely. Well, it is real quick. It's really interesting because when we were researching this case, it was almost impossible to find like a concrete background story for Casey, like, different things about her childhood or anything like that. And I found that really peculiar. I don't know if you guys found that peculiar as well.
I would find it peculiar if there wasn't so much evidence out there of the fact that she's really a narcissistic,
piece of shit,
consistent liar. I mean, it's not so much that there's not information out there, but
what's real?
Yeah,
what's real?
What can you believe? I mean,
that's definitely going to be a theme of this case.
Her own family thought she was leaving to go to work for 2 years to a job that didn't exist. You would actually put more effort into keeping that lie up than you would put into getting up and going to a job.
Yeah,
for 2 years.
That takes some that takes dedication.
What are you telling them you're doing? I mean, the whole day. Yeah, that's true. Among some of the other lies that this bitch orchestrated, some of the things that she put together, it's like, how are you planning on keeping that one for a while? How are you keeping the strings held together on that? We'll talk about it more.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, but I personally believe that it's easy to do that when you've got a mom who's setting an example for you on how to be a liar.
Yep.
Right, very true.
Absolutely.
Good. That's another thing we definitely. So, Jeff, I wanted to ask you a question before we dive headlong in here and get into a little bit of the background on this case. You suggested this case to talk to us about it. I wanted to know why that is. What is your connection that you thought, like, this case is a good one to talk about? Because I was really like, I was looking forward to doing this one. And we've had like 4 or 5 people who'd be like, I'd love to talk about Casey Anthony with you, but we wanted you to do it with us. Because everybody has an opinion.
Yeah, the reason why, first of all, I mean, so when we first talked to each other through a Facebook podcast group, you guys had mentioned, is there anyone out there that wants to, talk about cases that the outcome was not what they expected it to be? Your what the hell happened?
Yes.
WTX3, right.
First of all, this is one of those. I think everyone has a what the hell happened. It's up there with the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah,
up there with all those other ones. It's like, what the hell happened? What gets me interested in is the fact that I have 2 kids. I've got a son who goes to college, and I've got a daughter who is right now 11 years old. And when I look at her, and when I look at pictures of Kaylee Anthony, this beautiful, vibrant, this girl was absolutely just she was obviously the light of a room when you went in the room. She seemed to just draw people to her. And this is all stuff. Yeah, everyone's got little bratty kids, and everyone loves other people's kids because they're other people's kids.
Yes.
Right.
But this little girl kind of seemed to me like the kind of one that when you walked into a room, you just couldn't help but be, drawn to this little girl. And having said that, when we go into it, I think that's part of why things ended up being the way they ended up, is because of her appeal and her magnetism as far as a human being.
Right.
But how could somebody do this to a child? And not just somebody. How could a mother do this to her own daughter? And I look at my daughter and I think to myself, there's never a moment. I mean, I would rather slide down a slide of razors into a vat of acid than ever even do partially to my own children, or my own daughter especially, what this woman did to her kid. And I say that knowing that she was found innocent. My full opinion is there's nothing about her that screams innocent at all to me in any of this. So
No, absolutely not.
Totally. And everything you just said, I mean, I don't have kids personally, but it rings so true to me. I mean, I could not imagine, and I have friends that have kids, and I have young cousins, and I have, people that I love who have kids, and even then, I'd be at your front door with a fucking baseball bat if I found out somebody hurt. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! And
according to a lot of the media footage and everything, there were people that showed up.
Right? Yeah, some people really were.
Which we'll have to talk about, because we talked about that a little bit. I'm kind of curious as to how she's fared now. So let's get into the case so we can really
dive in.
Dive deep.
We're talking in a lot of obscurities. Let's dive into the facts, the nitty gritty. So. Bear with us. This case, we will throw out a little warning here. There are some graphic details. If anybody has triggers to anything like this, we do want to warn you. There are some things involving, first of all, decomposed bodies, if that triggers anybody. Children being involved, if that triggers anybody. And also, obviously, graphic murder scene.
And a lying and manipulative bitch.
Yeah, well, if you don't like lying manipulative bitches, you might as well stop.
You might like this podcast.
You might as well stop right here, because you're not going to like what happens to this lying manipulative bitch. But we're going to dive right in. So let's do it.
Let's get started.
So, starting on June 16th in 2008, so a little over 10 years ago now, Casey left the family home, taking her daughter Kaylee, who was nearly 3 years old at the time, with her, and did not return for 31 days, 1 month. Casey's mother, Cindy, asked repeatedly during that month to see Kaylee, but Casey claimed that she was too busy with a work assignment in Tampa, Florida. Other times, she said Kaylee was with a nanny, who Casey identified by the name of Zenaida Zanny Fernandez Gonzalez, or at theme parks or the beach. So basically there were a whole bunch of different places that Kaylee was in that month's time that her grandmother could not see her.
And like even the beginning of this case makes you wonder what the hell happened here, because it's like your grandma is accepting that, oh, they're at the beach. Every single time you try to talk to your granddaughter, see your granddaughter, every single time there's another excuse as to why you can't.
Sounds fishy from the get-go.
Yeah, it's a what the hell happened here kind of case from the second it takes off.
Right.
So for 31 days, Grandma's saying, hey, can I talk to Kaylee? Hey, can I see Kaylee? Hey, Kaylee should come over. Hey, whatever. And Casey's saying every single time has an excuse. Why did that not immediately after day 10? Day 5.
3. I'm
1 week.
like, yeah, how's the trip down to Tampa? Let me talk to the kid.
Yeah.
Well, it's far beyond that, because I mean, it's not like Casey was stopping by the home.
Right.
Casey and Kaylee lived at the house with the parents. They had never not lived at home. They had never moved out. She was pretty much a stay-at-home daughter with a daughter.
Living daughter with a daughter, yeah. Which isn't that uncommon these days. We're not in any way saying, but
3 days to me is ridiculous, because she didn't come home for 31 days when she had not moved out since the day that she moved out of her mother's uterus.
Right. All your stuff is still at the crib. And you had the kid, you took and what I don't understand is she took her child with her on a month trip for work when she already lives with her grandparents.
They have living babysitters.
Yeah, and have babysitters living. Why couldn't she have just stayed at home the whole time? What is this? I mean,
we know why.
Well, we know why, of course.
We know why.
Good point, Jeff.
Hindsight is
Now we know
2020.
why. But it's literally like, I mean, there are so many holes in this case from the beginning, and we'll continue to point them out throughout, the description here. But
It's all around really, like, it's a case that makes you wonder how it got so fucking out of hand so quickly. But we know why.
All right, yeah, so like you guys said, 31 days, no word. The mom and the dad are pressuring and everything. So on July 13th, 2008, while doing some yard work, Cindy and George Anthony found a notice on their door from the post office, a certified letter affixed to their front door, like I said. George Anthony picked up the certified letter from the post office on July 15th, 2008, and found that his daughter's car was in the tow yard. So, his daughter, who's been missing, who's got only her car, who hasn't heard from, and that, she's not out looking for her car, but her car is in a tow yard. So George being the father now, so we all understand this, George Anthony is a retired police officer from Orlando. So that plays a big part of what comes next. When George picked up the car, both he and the tow yard attendee noted a strong smell coming from the trunk, and both later stated they believed the odor to be that of a decomposing body. Now, guys, I'm just going to let you know, as somebody who worked investigations for the Department of Homeland Security, 18 years in the military, most of those times overseas, there is two things that you will never, ever forget. One thing you'll never, ever forget is where you eat breakfast. You'll never forget that. The second thing you will never, ever forget is what a decomposing body smells like. And what I mean is that the human body, doesn't matter what nationality, background, nothing, a human body, no other decomposing body, but a human body has such a distinct odor that once you've smelled it once and once you've had exposure to it, you will always be able to identify it and never, ever forget it. So you have got a police tow yard attendee who in Orlando, in Florida, where Florida man has all his cars at, he knows what a decomposing body smells like. George Anthony, who is a 20-year retired police officer, he knows what a decomposing body smells like. They both said that the smell in the car smelled of a decomposing body. Boom. So that to me, there should be no argument beyond that of what they actually smelled coming out of the car. When the trunk was opened, it contained a bunch of trash, but no human remains. No obvious human remains, no dead body, but just trash. Soon after.
But like you said, we know that smell.
Right, you know that smell.
From anything.
It's not decomposing pizza. It is decomposing. So not soon after that, once they get the car back, that is when Kaylee Anthony's mom, or Casey Anthony's mother, makes the very famous 911 call.
Which we're going to listen to right now.
What's happening? I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home. They're there right now? A possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month. A 3-year-old? Yeah. Have you reported that? I'm trying to do that now, ma'am. Okay, what did the person do that you need arrested? My daughter. For what? For stealing an auto and stealing money. I already spoke with someone. They said they would patch me through the Orlando Sheriff's Department, have a deputy here. I was in the car. I was going to drive her to the police station, and no one's open. They said they would bring a deputy to my home when I got home to call them. So she stole your vehicle? Yes. When did she do that? On the 30th. I just got it back from the impound. I'd like to speak to an officer. Can you have someone come out to my house? Okay. Okay, I gotta ask you these questions so I can put them in the call, okay? Okay. 30th of June? Yes. Okay, how old is your daughter? 22. Okay, what's her name? My name? Her name. Her name? And you said you have the vehicle back? Yes. I have the statement. She's there right now? Yes, I got her. I finally found her after a month. She's been missing for a month. I found her, but we can't find my granddaughter. 5'1.5". Thin, medium, or heavy build? Thin. Color hair? Brown. What color shirt is she wearing? White. What color pants? Oh, they're shorts. They're plaid. They're like pink and teal and white and black plaid. Does she have any weapons on her? No. Is she not telling you where her daughter is? Correct. Okay, we'll have a deputy out to you as soon as one's available, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. 911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago. The deputy sheriff telling you I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing. Okay, what is here now? Okay, what is the address that you're calling from? We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her. Your daughter admitted that the baby is where? But the babysitter took her months ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. She just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name? Kaylee. Caylee. Anthony. Kaylee Anthony? Yes. Okay, is she white, black, or Hispanic? She's white. How long has she been missing for? I have not seen her since the 7th of June. What is her date of birth? 8/9/2000. Oh God, she's 3. She's 2005. So it's Kaylee missing. Kaylee's missing. Kaylee's missing. He took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month. Okay, I understand. Can you calm down for me for just a minute and I need to know what's going on, okay? I'm gonna try and stop. Is your daughter there? I'm on the phone with them. Is your daughter there? Yeah. Can I speak with her? Do you mind if I speak with her? Thank you. I called them 2 hours ago. They haven't gotten here. Can you speak? Finally admitted to Sarah. He took her a month ago. Ma'am. Okay, Sarah's here. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello? Hello? Yes. Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit? I'm sorry? Can you tell me a little bit what's going on? Can you tell me what's going on a little bit? I'm sorry? Can you tell me a little bit what's going on? My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days. And you know who has her? I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a moment, about a minute. Okay, did you guys call and report a vehicle stolen? Yes, my mom did. Yep. Okay, so there's been a vehicle stolen too? No, this was my vehicle. What vehicle was stolen? It's a 98 Pontiac Sunfire. Okay, I have deputies on the way to you right now for that. So now your 3-year-old daughter is missing. Kaylee Anthony. Yes. White female. Anthony. Yes, white female. 3 years old, 8/9/2005, her date of birth? Yes. And you last saw her a month ago? 31 days. Some 31 days. Who has her? Do you have a name? Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. Who is that? Babysitter? She's been my nanny for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago? I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid. Okay. Can you give me the name of the nanny again? Like, spell it out for me? Zenaida, Zenaida. Last name? Fernandez. Hyphen Gonzalez. I think the officers are here. The officers are there? Yes. Okay, hold on a second. Don't hang up with me yet. I need to... Okay.
Okay, everyone, so we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so from here on out, the audio may sound a bit different. Bear with us. Audio situations come up and they happen, and unfortunately, we're dealing with it right now. So, let's keep going. So, we just listened to the 911 call, and it was actually kind of peculiar. The 911 call, you hear Casey, what's her mom's name? Cindy, I should know that. Cindy, you hear Cindy on the audio while they're waiting to be transferred over to the correct department, pretty much say, I'm giving you one more day to figure this shit out or I'm calling CPS, is what she's saying in the audio in between the 911 calls. Now, I don't know if they were smart enough, because we'll talk about what we think happened here, when we think it happened, and who we think knows about it at the end. However, that's interesting to know, because either it's really good acting, or at that point, Cindy was genuinely confused and concerned about wherever Kaylee was. So I thought that was pretty interesting to point out, which we just heard. So that's something to keep in your back pocket while we go over what happened here going forward.
It's also a good thing to point out that that Casey Anthony seems completely unaffected and not concerned, one way or the other, about anything. I mean, this woman's 3-year-old daughter has been missing for 31 days. Now, the parents, what they know and what they don't know is neither here nor there. She knows that child has been missing for 31 days. She knows that there is no Zenaida Gonzalez Fernandez or Cholo Locordo Cedo Locanos Ocere Jones. She knows that there's no one out there. She has no idea where her child is, and she's not concerned about it, or she knows exactly where her child is and is just pretending that whatever situation she's in is just not existing because she's made her entire life around. When things go wrong, I'll just pretend things aren't wrong and get my way because I'm a fucking child and I get what I want.
Yep. And then it's true, and like you said, either way it's fun, either whatever you believe, whether she did know or she didn't know, either way she's fucking up. Either way it's not the way a normal parent would act, and I hate to say normal because like what's normal, but a concerned parent would not be like, man, well, she might be with a nanny.
After 31 days?
I would say after day 2.
After 31
After an hour.
minutes. Like, yo, how many people you know that have kids let their kids go for 30 minutes without knowing where they are?
Right, and you know this firsthand.
John Douglas, who is the guy who started the FBI Profiler division and is the guy who wrote things like Mindhunter and worked on many cases, including this case, by the way. he has gone through many times saying that you cannot predict how people are going to act to crisis situations. You just cannot do it. But what you can predict is the fact that absolute friggin' not giving a shit is always a red flag. And he said that she is way outside of the realm of just reacting to a situation in an off way. An off way is kind of how Cindy and George reacted to this. They
Right,
stood
yeah,
behind
more
their daughter,
confused.
knowing nothing to do but to just believe what their daughter says. What
Right.
Casey Anthony did was maniacal and underhanded.
Absolutely. So it was said that Cindy reported that Casey gave her varying accounts of where Kaylee was throughout these 31 days, as Matt touched on before we listened to that 911 call. She said she was with this nanny, which, again, like Jeff brought up in the beginning of the show, she lived with her parents. The nannies lived in the house. Those were the grandparents. At this point, they should have been like, that's total bullshit, because we would have been the nanny. The most logical person to nanny the kids would be the people closest to the kids, which are the people that live in the house, which would be the grandparents in this case. Also said she was at theme parks. I'm presuming that means like Disney World, since they're in Florida. Who knows? She just made up some bullshit for 31 days. Now, Casey told Cindy she was too busy with work and that Kaylee was with her nanny, theme parks, or at the beach. But on July 15th, Casey had finally admitted she had not seen her daughter herself in weeks. This is just so many problems with all of this, but that's something to note. On July 15th is finally when Casey Anthony said, actually, you know what? I haven't seen my daughter in weeks. It's been weeks, not minutes, not hours, not a day. It's been weeks since I last saw my child. So, when detectives interviewed Casey, she originally told them that Kaylee was kidnapped by her nanny on June 9th. Now, remember the time frame here. June 9th is when she said this happened. July 15th was when it was reported, or she admitted it.
Kidnapped.
A month later, someone takes my child. I don't even have a child, but if someone takes my dog for 30 minutes, I shit my pants and ask them where they are.
Right.
Right? So it's like, and then you, as a father, you could say, you would want to know where your kids are, especially after a day, after 2, after 15, after a month. Like, that's just inconceivable.
Yeah, after 45 seconds, I want to know where my kids are.
Right?
If I haven't seen them, if I'm supposed to be aware of where they're at, and if I'm directly responsible for their welfare, then if I don't know where they're at, then I'm in violation of all those 1980s commercials. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kid is?
Yep.
So right. She's all kinds of wrong.
Plus, basically every parental code that's ingrained in your DNA from birth to death, right? Like from conception to death, right?
Right. And especially, and I know this is going to sound even more wild, but like the maternal instinct, where is that? That she like never had that. That maternal instinct, where are you? The caring, nurturing, where is that? And even on July 15th, when this all came to light, that she has not seen her kid in a month, or weeks is what she said, but it was a month at this point, she wasn't concerned. She didn't sound worried. She didn't sound like she was in any kind of hurry to figure it out.
She tried to make it sound like she didn't have a fucking clue. Her whole play was, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't seen her.
Sorry. She must be with the nanny. I can't do anything about it. I've asked her to give me her back.
Like her play was, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
What? But, so, Casey's explanation, though, as we've been talking about why the hell she didn't call the police a month ago, her explanation for that was because she was too frightened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, too frightened to call the police to find your daughter. Your dad is a retired police officer. I know from one of my best friends, her stepdad is a police officer. The first fucking person she's comfortable going to are the police. That's the first person she runs to because that's in her family. That's someone she trusts.
Right. Well, when you're frightened and you're young and you have no idea what to do, you go to the police.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, if she really didn't believe she had done anything wrong at this point, she would not be hiding not only from her parents but from the police.
Exactly.
We all hide shit from our parents when we're young and we fucked up. And we all do it.
Yeah.
It's part of growing up. So I'll give her a pass on hiding it from her parents. But she hid it from everyone. And
Mhm.
the bottom line is there is nobody out there who she confided in before she was backed into a corner and had to
Yep.
tell people that she had not seen the kid. And I'm sorry, but at that point, everything that comes out of your mouth is bullshit. And with Casey Anthony, it's very, very important to remember this. Everything that comes out of her mouth is bullshit.
Yep.
Everything.
She was raised on bullshit. She's continued on to bullshit. She's just shit. That's basically what she is. She's trash.
You're exactly right.
So, Detective Yuri Melich with the Orange County Sheriff's Department began investigating the disappearance of Kaylee Anthony because he found discrepancies in Casey's signed statement, which was saying, I haven't seen my daughter in a month, she was with a nanny, and she gave the name, Zanny the nanny, as we all know now, which we'll talk about some theories regarding that a little later. But when investigators looked into Kaylee's apparent nanny, which was Zenaida Zanny Fernandez Gonzalez, and I like that you just added, the rest of the name.
Yeah, Pepsi Cola
That was like my favorite part of this whole thing so far. So they determined that a woman did actually exist with the name Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. She existed, but she had never met Casey Anthony, Kaylee Anthony, really any member of the Anthony family, or any of Casey's friends. So this woman existed, but it was one of those situations where Casey opened a phone book, got back to the Z's, and just put her finger down, and that was the name she gave.
It's actually far worse than that. Remind me during, so there's no spoilers. When we get to the final location of where they find Kaylee, remind me to go back to this and why that woman is even more maniacal. And Casey Anthony had a history of doing this kind of shit. As we all know, nobody knows who Kaylee Anthony's father was. So at some point, she had gone through multiple answers as to who she thought the father was, and one of her solid answers to who the father was a gentleman that she had dated who had died weeks after Kaylee was born in a car accident. Now, nobody knew who this guy was by name. However, the guy existed. He did die in a car accident 2 weeks after she died in the Orlando area. But it was literally like the same thing, flipping through the obituaries, pointing out a name, saying, here's someone that no one will ever be able to track back to. So she has a history of doing this kind of,
pull a name out of the news.
Yeah, swiping right and left on different people I can blame shit on. It was
You should create that.
Yeah, it was
alibi.
It was alibi for online dating, pretty much.
Yes, that would be amazing. But yeah, that's literally what she did. We'll go back to what you were saying about where she was found in a bit. But that's what she did. It sounds like we know she's been a pathological liar her entire life. It's nothing new to anybody, not even her parents, not anybody. The only people it's news to is the police who are investigating her child is missing. Right. And this makes the investigation even more frustrating for everyone involved because no one's getting straight answers. Everyone's getting some bullshit. And that kept going. Casey told the police she was working at Universal Studios, which, like we mentioned at the top of the show, she had been telling her parents for years. And to my knowledge, I don't know if anyone's ever seen anything that points differently. They really believed she was working at Universal Studios for 2-3 years.
Her boyfriend, her friends all believe that she was working.
That just makes me wonder, what the hell was she doing for 2 years?
Because she won the Super Bowl, so she went to Disney World.
It's a beautiful idea. I mean, that's probably exactly what happened.
That's probably what she thought. I mean, like...
Right, she's living in a fucking...
This is the truth. The truth according to Casey Anthony.
Investigators kind of caught on to the bluff that Casey Anthony was telling, brought her to Universal Studios to kind of see, who she knew, if they could back up that she worked for Universal for the last X amount of years. They brought her there on July 16th, 2008, which was the day after Kaylee was reported missing, that 911 call we heard, and asked her to show them her office. Casey led police around for a while, so she just said, let's go around. I don't even know how she got in the building.
How she got in the building was when she got to the front gate with the police officers and asked to be entered. The front security guy was like, I don't know who you are, lady. And and she went on this big long tirade of what do you mean you don't know who I am? I'm Casey Anthony. But get the manager. So the manager comes down there, and being that the manager is looking at, he's hearing about a missing child. There are police officers there and a woman there. He kind of is just like, you know what? Go do what you have to do inside the park, and lets them go. So she thinks, I'm good to go. She walks them around for 2 hours around friggin' Universal Studios until she finally runs out of hallways, and they stop at a water fountain at a dead end. She turns around and with a straight face says, "Yeah, I don't know." And
I'm surprised the police officers didn't just break fucking down and punch her right in the throat. That's what I would have done. I would have been fired. That would have been my last day as a police officer.
Yeah, they arrested her on the spot. That was her first detention by the police. Was right there on that spot for lying and impeding an investigation.
Can you fucking imagine her turning around after leading you all around fucking Universal Studios to God knows where? She doesn't even know where she's fucking going.
I'm sitting here thinking, what was her plan? She was waiting on an empty office.
She was hoping that fucking Harry Potter was gonna come out and fucking, somehow fucking wing a fucking wand around, and her kid was gonna fucking show up. And then
She was gonna take all of them on the Jaws ride.
That's right.
Okay, scare the shit out of them,
And then they'll forget about it.
they'll totally forget to ask where off.
Shit. I came all the way to Orlando. I've been walking around this fucking Orlando Studios for 2.5 hours, and I still ain't got on that fucking dragon ride. And this bitch is telling me
Still haven't gotten on the fucking dragon. The one guy in the back was like, "Can we go see Space Mountain?"
Yeah,
It's not here. Damn it!
Magic Kingdom is not even the same park.
I told you.
I'm
Agent
surprised
Hobbs.
at this point that she didn't claim that one of the friggin' orcas over at friggin' ate her baby.
You know,
Them orcas, they're killing their own handlers. She obviously.
she put Kaylee on the park bench
Kaylee
next to Goofy and
was
Mickey.
being watched by Shamu.
Shamu?
Fucking Shamu.
Honestly,
Shamu.
would have been more believable.
It's about as believable as all of her other bullshit at this point. You know what I mean?
You're saying you don't leave your kids with Shamu?
I would trust the fucking White House.
Not in Orlando. I mean, if we were talking about a Florida Shamu or a California Shamu, maybe. But you can't trust them Florida Shamus.
Yeah, you're right. I trust them more than Casey, though. That's for sure.
Jesus Christ, I trust terrorists more than I trust Casey.
Jesus Christ.
You trust Sharis more than I'm dying.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
we need to have you back more often.
Yeah, Jeff, we're gonna make this a regular thing, man. This is great.
Oh my god.
So-
Sorry, take it away.
Yeah, like you said, it was her first arrest, giving false statements to law enforcement, and they also arrested her for child neglect and obstruction of a criminal investigation.
They should have just fucking locked her up then and there forever.
Well, it seems like
Well,
they had
that was
evidence
their
there.
intent. That was their intent.
Right.
But obviously, what was it? I mean, how long afterwards was moving on? I guess how long after the charges were made did that oil worker or the meter man or whatever find poor Kaylee?
Yeah.
It was shortly thereafter.
It was on August 20. Just kidding. That's not the right. It's on August 11th, 12th, and 13th is when they reported it a suspicious object, forested area near the Anthony residence. So,
You guys want the two whammies now about where they found the body?
yep, give them to us.
All right, here's a couple whammies of where they found the body. First whammy of where they found the body is where they found the body was about a block away from where her car had been towed from. Second whammy is that Zenaida Gonzalez Mahones macaroni and cheese. She had lived in a residence next to the location. So,
Oh my God!
I did not know
so
that.
if she's, here's what I'm looking at. If she's sweetening up the deal to drop this on this woman, this absolutely innocent woman, she is not just digging through a phone book to find a name. She had found the name of a person who lived within 100 meters of where the body was dumped and put
Why
that
did I
name
know
out there, which to me is what shows that she knew the entire time where that body was.
This cannot.
Oh, that
fucking
fucking just gave me chills. Why didn't I fucking know that?
That is so crazy. I've never heard that either. And I mean, I've read about this case since 10 years. I mean, 10 years. I've never heard that. Jeff,
Holy
that's fucking mind-blowing, man.
Ew, that just fucking.
Oh
fucking
my
bitch.
God, she definitely set that up because somebody, I mean, obviously she was thinking, oh, if she lived right there, that's even more evidence to the fact that she might have.
You gotta give us a second. We are
No,
mind
no,
fucking
go
going.
right ahead. I mean, if you're not getting
Oh,
douche chills,
Wow.
if you're not getting douche chills because of this stuff, you're not a human being. I mean, this woman is just
Dead ass, man.
maniacally evil.
Oh, man.
Maniacally evil. And it gets worse.
Yep.
I mean, you guys know when we get into the trial, it gets far worse when she will go to pass the buck.
Everything
off.
about this fucking game. It's just like,
Chills, yo. Chills, man.
okay.
Oh, my God.
So, like we said, on July 16th, rewinding just a bit, she was put in jail. On July 22nd, originally the judge denied bail, saying that Casey had shown woeful disregard for the welfare of her child, which has continued into today. But on July 22nd, 2008, after a bond hearing, the judge did set bail at $500,000. Now, Casey was offered a limited immunity deal on July 29, 2008 by prosecutors related to the false statements given to law enforcement about locating her child, which was renewed on August 25th to expire on August 28th. She did not take this deal.
No, because she's not. She believes her own lies. She's
Yep.
She's absolutely.
She's a true sociopath. She's a psychopath. She's just
Sociopath.
narcissist. So on August 21st, 2008, 1 month after she was first incarcerated, she was released from the Orange County Jail after her $500,000 bond was posted by the nephew of California bail bondsman Leonard Padilla in hopes that Padilla. Well, motherfucking Padilla. Okay. Leonard Padilla in hopes that she would cooperate and Kaylee would be found. So, for whatever fucking reason on this planet Earth, people believed that she would somehow cooperate and this case would be quick and she'd be tried and dumped in a hole, hopefully. Unfortunately, that's not what fucking happened. As we said, on August 11th, 12th, and 13th, separate occasions, meter reader Roy Kronk called the police about a suspicious object found in a forested area near the Anthony residence. And as we now know, also near Zanny the Nanny, in quotes, her residence as well.
Maybe not her direct residence, but a residence she had been tied to.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Right.
So
we want to say that. No, she wasn't.
Yeah, she wasn't living in the house there, but there was a familial or a former resident connection to one of the two houses that the body was found in between.
This bitch did some book reporting here. She fucking wrote a dissertation.
Well, she had 31 days. She had 31 days to come up with the story.
That information is available to anybody that can get access to the county website, which you can get at your local library.
I guess you're right.
I mean,
she was in jail for a while there.
She probably could have walked up.
Jeff just said, she had a month to figure this one out.
She probably walked up and just took the information from opening up their mailbox and finding a name on a friggin' piece of mail.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And as we'll see and as we'll continue to see, this may not have just been in the 31 days that she was missing. This might have been pre the disappearance.
Right.
Yes.
This might have been planned. Who knows how long it was planned?
Right.
Who knows how long it took for her to get this story built in her head, to execute what she wanted to execute. Well, that was a horrible choice of words. To go through with her plan.
Because that's exactly what it seems like happened. What do they find in the body? They find the body wrapped up in a blanket that came from the Anthony residence. They found the body had duct tape over the nose and mouth of which we know now is Kaylee. They found duct tape. That duct tape was matched back to duct tape that was in the garage of the Casey family residence. They found hairs and samples of material that were consistent with hairs and samples of material that were taken from Casey Anthony's trunk. Now, I'll give somebody a buy that when they say they found evidence of Kaylee Anthony in the trunk of Casey Anthony's car, it's her mom's car. I'm sure if you went in the trunk of my Camaro, you're going to find my daughter's, maybe a rogue hair in there or something like that, but my daughter's being in my car. But finding
Which, Jeff, I'll ask you right now, but I'll probably bring it up again later. Do you think that the prosecution might have leaned a little too heavily on that like the trunk of the car? Because I remember that was a focal point.
No, I think where the prosecution made its mistakes was in the internet browsing history searches, and with the fact that it let the defense make massively outlandish claims in its opening statement, never called it out during the trial, never brought it back up, let them continue to make these statements without any evidence until the closing statements, and then because they probably didn't want to go through the trial again, never called for a mistrial, which they were well within their rights to do because of the opening statement claims that Baez had made and all the different other stuff. It was the prosecution made massive mistakes, lazy mistakes, and bottom line is they were almost punished by the jurors for these mistakes.
For fucking up so hard.
Fucking up so bad. Which they did. They just fucked this case up. They were handed 400 pieces of damning evidence. 400 pieces of evidence. 0 pieces of evidence showing anything other than that. They took what was a reasonable doubt. And there might have been a reasonable doubt that case is not guilty. They took a reasonable doubt and they made it a reasonable and effective doubt by the way they handled this case.
Right. That's well said.
Yeah.
I like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, it's always so shocking to me, and I get it. I get why the justice system works so it does. I don't always agree with it. Obviously, that's why this podcast exists. But I think it's interesting that the prosecution's job or the defense's job is to make one person out of 12 people doubt. That's it. That's all they need to do. Change one person's mind, and it could throw the whole case. All they have to do. Whereas the prosecution has to convince
change their mind necessarily, though.
They just have doubt.
Maybe just confirm their doubts.
Yeah.
Some people might have already gone in with doubt.
Yeah.
Then they have the prosecution almost aiding the defense, like Jeff said. They fucked up bad enough where they got to the point where it's like, you know what, these idiots.
And we'll talk about it later. A lot of the defense, like Jeff said, cited the horrible, horrible, horrible case that the prosecution made as the reason what the outcome was eventually here. It was interesting to note for me that when that meter reader did find Kaylee's body, originally he called on the 11th. They kind of blew it off as just whatever, it's a report. Second time he called, he was met by 2 police officers, reported to them, said he saw a skull. On that occasion, the officer conducted a short search and didn't see anything. And finally, it took a 3rd attempt of calling, saying, listen, something's fucking wrong with this situation. I know there's a human body in this fucking bag. Can someone check it out? And that's when they finally found Kaylee's body, and it was in the condition that Jeff was saying. It had all the evidence from the fucking Anthony household. All of it. All of it.
And
How?
Because
You know what I mean?
because the police had not done a thorough search of the area the first time that this man had reported it, this man on the 3rd time out had actually touched the body, moving the skull, leading the defense to have an opportunity to disclaim and remove all the evidence about the duct tape from the prosecution's ability to put it forth. So the duct tape.
Could say it was tampered.
Yeah. So the fact that he touched the body and moved the skull, it eliminated the fact that they could say that this duct tape was over the nose and mouth of Kaylee's body. Hence bringing it into, now they opened it up for them to use there was an accident that happened and it wasn't murder.
It's just also fucking frustrating. This whole case just makes me want to bang my head against a wall.
So do you guys think it'd be interesting to talk about the parents and then they're standing by Casey? You talk about what is the definition of an enabler. These parents. Now, my heart really does go out to George Anthony. I think that this guy, with his suicide attempt, which was used against him as, making him a possible suspect, all the way up to the fact that Baez, the defense lawyer, in his opening statement says that George had sexually assaulted and molested Casey Anthony. He says this in the opening statements with 0 evidence, and then never mentions it again through the entire trial until the closing arguments, and then mentions it again. The prosecution does nothing about it. They do not call for mistrial, that he making claims that with no evidence. They do not cross-examine or ask him questions on the stand. The prosecution never asked George Anthony questions about this to dispute it. They just put out there that George Anthony molested his daughter. Like that has anything to do with Kaylee Anthony to begin with.
That's irrelevant and inflammatory evidence. I mean, it's not even evidence.
This man's standing by his daughter, and his daughter allows her defense to throw her father under a bus and call him a child molester.
That's a whole different kind of evil.
That's fucking horrible. talk about all the after the trial information about how it was later on, reported that she was paying for her defense by getting naked in the lawyer's office and having sex with him, and quote unquote paying off the different things that she was getting from the lawyer with blowjobs, which was in books now that this was happening. There's all kinds of dirty shit going on with this defense, this woman, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember when it came back that she was innocent. I mean, I couldn't fucking believe it.
I don't think anyone could. That's the whole thing about this case. It's like we said, from beginning to end. I don't know how there was any fucking doubt in people's minds, but they made a case, and they made a damn good case, I guess. Or the prosecution just massively failed.
No, they made a good case. They created enough doubt where people had to think about it, and then instead of refuting it, kind of like Jeff said, they made it seem more likely.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecution did. Instead of coming back and offering some evidence to the contrary, they offered inflammatory statements and didn't refute them. Well, if you don't say anything to the contrary, what else are we to assume but it's fucking true?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to contradict that. You can't really refute a negative. So if it ain't true, or if it's not refutable, it must be true.
Yeah.
The defense
and it was ruled a homicide.
It was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner, and the defense claimed that it was an accidental drowning, but yet with the accidental drowning, the defense never questioned George Anthony if he had disposed of the body, which was their claim. The prosecution never went into pointing out that there was no water in the lungs of the body. Now, understanding 31 days is enough time for the Florida Everglades to take away any kind of damage, but they tied their entire case of murder to this 84 times that suffocation or
was
chloroform
Google.
or ether or whatever was found in Google. And then what they found out later on that was not accurate. The Explorer was not correct. But what they failed to realize was that Casey Anthony didn't use Internet Explorer. Her mother used Internet Explorer. Casey Anthony had Firefox downloaded on her computer. She used that. Now, later investigators went on and found multiple searches of foolproof suffocation and foolproof body disposal searched in Firefox the morning of the disappearance 68 times by Casey Anthony.
Foolproof.
This fucking bitch. Yeah, so it's just incredible. This whole fucking case is just incredible, and in all the worst ways. So it is important to note on September 5th, 2008, they ruled her death, Kaylee's death, a homicide, but they were unsure of the cause of death, and as Jeff said, it was because the body had been presumably there for 31 days, if not longer.
Right.
And the elements definitely took their toll. With December 5th, Casey was released again on bail on pending charges of being fitted with an electronic tracking device. She had a tracking device on her ankle, which did probably nothing for this bitch. But her $500,000 bond was posted by her parents. As Jeff said in the top of the show, enablers. Instead of letting her rot in jail for at least a little bit, they bailed her ass out of jail, and they signed a permissionary note for bond. Now, promissory.
Promissory?
Yeah. I just can't speak.
We're like the prosecution.
We're
like the prosection tonight. We just can't seem to get it together.
I can't make a case. I can't speak English.
Rumbling stuff.
That's my life motto.
Still doing a better job than the prosecution did in the case, Anthony.
Right?
If we fuck up everything,
we still would be doing better.
Right.
That is true.
So on October 14, 2008, Casey Anthony was indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to the police. She was later arrested.
Only 4? Every time that woman opened her mouth, some false information came.
Lie. Yep. So Judge John Jordan ordered yet again that she be held without bond, and on October 21st, 2008, the charges of child neglect were dropped against Casey, according to the state attorney's office, because, and I quote, the evidence proved that the child was deceased. The state sought an indictment on the legally appropriate charges.
Right.
I still don't understand that.
You can't neglect a dead baby. That's
There you
why
go.
they dropped the charges. You can't hold her for charges of neglecting a body that is not alive.
Yeah.
That's why they
True.
dropped the charges.
I didn't realize
Because
that. That makes
by upholding those charges of child neglect in that time period, the state would be saying that she was actively knew the baby was alive.
Yeah.
It was the one thing they did right. They had to drop those charges so that they could identify, well, she's not guilty of neglect at this point because she's already killed the child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on October 28th, Anthony was arraigned and pleaded not guilty to all charges. On April 13th, 2009, prosecutors announced that they plan to seek the death penalty in the case.
Another mistake
Now,
by the prosecution.
personally speaking, this is where I feel a lot of issues
Yeah, this
started.
was a giant mistake by the prosecution. When you have a case full of holes and you've got a defense that's actually doing a very good job of throwing people out there, and you've got a world that we live in right now where you have about half of the country probably believes or doesn't believe in the death penalty. You want this woman in jail, and how many people are not willing to throw her with weak evidence, with no solid evidence? How many people are going to put her under the needle? Not many. Had they kept it at life in prison, went for man one, they probably would have. There are jurors that said that she would be sitting in jail right now. They allowed emotion. They had found their emotions. They allowed their emotions to dictate the charges, and they ultimately paid the price for it.
I'm sure you're familiar with the term. Lisa, I'm sure we might have talked about it once or twice too. But lesser known offenses, it's something that you can ask for as a prosecuting attorney, where you ask the jury to consider if you don't believe that we've met the circumstances to meet murder one, say, for example, because that's what we're talking about here. We won't speak in hypotheticals. But you believe that we have met the statute for man one. You can charge her with that, and then we will sentence her based on that,
Instead of
as opposed to go for the home run or swing and fucking miss.
Yeah, they were
Which
arrogantly
is
thought they
exactly-
arrogantly thought they had a solid case.
I definitely think there was ego involved.
Do you really think
looked
they
at it and
believed it, though? I mean, obviously, from an outsider looking in now, everybody on the fucking planet Earth would convict this bitch. However,
Except for those 12 years.
except for those 12 jurors. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, well,
So do you think that that's exactly what the prosecution thought?
The
Do you think that they were that?
Yeah, the prosecution was a victim of Nancy Grace. Turning on the Nancy Grace show. No, I'm
Yeah.
serious. Seeing her,
I know.
yeah.
People wanted to kill her because of this.
they judged their entire case off of the public opinion that was going around. The fact that Nancy Grace is on there every single night saying that this, number one mom in America bullshit, and they allowed their friggin' emotions and their arrogance to underestimate the blows that Jose Baez and Casey Anthony would go to get her out of trouble.
Yep. Ooh, Lord. But like you said, 400 pieces of evidence were presented at the trial. Now, a strand of hair was recovered from the trunk of Casey's car, which is, again, a huge part of this case for proving that was she alive or dead when she was in that trunk, or if she was ever in that trunk. And it was microscopically similar to a hair taken from Kaylee Anthony's hairbrush. Now, the strand did show root branding, which I found out was a term in where the hair roots from a dark band form a dark band after death, and that was consistent with hair from a dead body. So the hair in the trunk was consistent with the hair from a dead body, which I guess the prosecution latched onto and then thought that would make people 100% believe that this dead body was chilling in this trunk for X amount of time.
We have a big problem in America where we're guilty of CSI kind of mentality. If there's no absolute 100% pure DNA evidence or some kind of scientific evidence, then they're not going to prosecute. And using stuff like the hair banding is a very good way to indicate that there was the presence of a dead body, but they could not DNA connect that hair to Kaylee. They could not explain that science enough to it. Also, they allowed the defense to let the guy who was their scientific expert be deemed a non-expert, even though this man had worked on every single case from JFK to the West Memphis 3 as an expert witness. They allowed the defense to undermine him and get him marked down as not an expert.
Yeah, it's just so. It's just so insane to me. This whole freaking case just is horrible. But you're right. You're absolutely right. It's just every little turn in this case. Her defense just fucking made a really good case. They were able to prove doubt in every word.
Jose Baez knew what he was doing when he stepped up and he said, we're going to poison the jury pool. We're going to make the national
And
media.
fucking poison. They fucking made everybody drink the Kool-Aid on that
That's what I
jury.
mean. That's right. Absolutely.
And he did all that and got blowjobs for it. Well done, sir.
Right? Right?
Well done,
We'll
sir.
give him a 12 golf clap or not?
I don't know, man.
Never mind. Never mind.
I don't think I would let her touch me with a 10-foot fucking pole.
It wasn't a pole. It wasn't a 10-foot pole. He was letting her touch him with.
Yes. But back to the trunk shit. So, like you said, they weren't able to 100% identify that this hair in the trunk was Kaylee Anthony's. It was like, wasn't it like there was like a percentage of it could be Cindy's, a percentage of it could be Casey's, and then it was a percentage of it that could be Kaylee's. So there was no fact that this is Kaylee's hair.
Well, the bottom line is, I think
they presented as a fact
they tried to present it as a fact, but the bottom line is, like we said earlier, I mean, this is her mom's car. I mean,
yeah.
Forget the fact that it was or was not her hair, because you're going to find hair from the victim in her mother's car.
There's a reasonable explanation for that. You can debunk that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And they did.
They didn't focus on what, like we said before, the scientific banding of a hair at the time of death. That's what they should have focused on.
Yeah.
Oh, how they ascertain that information too from a bullshitting Casey Anthony and her mom, who was not willing to help with anything. Like between the two of them. I mean.
It's an enabler.
Yeah.
So moving forward here, of course, the prosecution was kind of stuck on the fact that chloroform was searched, is how they brought it up, and then that was debunked. But they were, again, the trunk was the main focus of this entire trial, and there was no 100% match when they tested the trunk for chloroform. No 100% match. So what was the whole prosecution's idea of what happened? She was chloroformed by her mom and then thrown in the trunk, right?
The mom used chloroform to put her asleep. Placed the tape over her mouth, suffocated her in the trunk, then disposed of the body later on in the yard. And chloroform is it's in common household cleaners. It's there's a percentage of chloroform that exists in the atmosphere that was consistent with what's in there. They missed the bus, which goes to what my theory is on, and not just mine, but other people's theories. What happened is the chloroform should have been dumped. There should have been no use of chloroform because on top of the fact that it's just not an effective excuse or way that the crime went down, but it's also, we're talking about Casey Anthony here. We're not talking about a fucking person who can put chloroform together like a genius. She's a fucking brain dead moron. I mean, the only thing she's good at is getting herself out of trouble, and apparently getting lawyers to do her bidding.
Yep.
She is not a chemist. She is not a genius. She is a maniacal, narcissistic liar. But what she is a party girl, right?
Yep.
And what is one of the things that was coming up in party scenes back then was this little magic pill called Xanax. And Xanax, which disappears in the human body whether you're alive or dead within 10 days, will not show up inside the human body. Has also been referred to by many people of that scene as, when your kids don't want to go to sleep, you want to party all night, just give them the Zanny the nanny.
Oh my
She
God.
claimed the child being taken by Zanny the nanny. Zanny the nanny is a common phrase used by women who put their Xanax in their kids' drinks to put their kids to sleep.
Yep.
Bitch.
I mean, for God's sakes.
Bitch.
So she Xanaxed her child. She then put tape over the nose and mouth of the baby when the baby was unconscious, stuck the baby in a bag, put her in her trunk, let her child suffocate and die in the trunk. And the reason why her car smelled is because she's so fucking lazy that she drove around too long with that dead body in the trunk until somebody else started smelling it, and then dumped it. While she dumped it, she went to a store next to a pizza parlor and was seen rummaging through the pizza parlor's trash to find the nastiest pizza she could find that she threw in the trunk, which she then later blamed on the smell, and was bought by everyone, including her parents, even after they both made statements that they had smelled a dead body in the trunk of her car. Her friggin' excuse has got so many holes in it.
She went and dug up an old nasty ass pizza as an alibi.
There's footage. There's security footage of her digging through a dumpster next to a pizza parlor.
What lengths won't this bitch go to? It's like incredible.
Mad, yo. That's what I'm saying.
It's incredible. Like we said, Shamu did it. Like, right? Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I can imagine this crazy ass bitch. Yeah, like I can imagine this crazy ass bitch digging through a pizza joint's trash. Disgusting. I don't even want to know what's in there. Thinking, I'll toss this in my trunk so it'll cover up the smell of the dead body.
This fucking bitch.
Then I'll run out of gas. In my car 1 block away from where I dumped the body, and then once the car is repoed or towed, I'll make no mention of it, and hopefully no one will ever notice. See, her entire life is based on the fact that she hopes nobody notices her lies.
Yeah.
And she stoically stands by her lies ad nauseum so bad, and has her mom, who is my opinion, accessory after the fact, just by her denial,
I would agree with
standing by these lies. I mean, to this day, her mother still believes she's innocent.
Right.
Her mother is still married to George Anthony, and the one person in her family who doesn't believe she's innocent anymore, George Anthony.
Yep.
He has come out and said that he believes his daughter killed his grandson.
Can you imagine coming out of realization? Well, he fucking probably came to that realization during this, but didn't say anything. But yeah, so let's talk about the jurors and attorneys, because they played obviously the biggest role in this entire fucking mess of a case. Or, you know, what could really be reviewed as a really great case. If you're training to be a defense attorney, they literally did everything right. They won a fucking, what seems like an unwinnable case, right? They cast so much fucking doubt that nobody knew what was up and what was fucking down. Nobody had any clue what was going on. Everybody was questioning everything. Still to this day, there's debate over what the fuck happened.
I think a lot of that has to do with Casey Anthony's ambiguity throughout the whole thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
So she's smart or she's stupid, right?
Yeah, is she maniacal?
No, she's maniacally genius. She's a maniacal genius.
Yeah.
And she knows now. She knows now that double jeopardy applies.
Right.
She could come out just like O.J. Simpson did and tell everyone that she did it, and it wouldn't make a fucking difference. Having said that, she's so freaking self-absorbed that you'll never hear out of her mouth that she did it.
Yep.
Regardless of how much we all know she did.
Yep. This fucking bitch. Alright, so the lead prosecutor in the case was Assistant State Attorney Linda Drain Burdick. Assistant State Attorney Frank George and Jeff Ashton completed the prosecution team, and unfortunately, they absolutely failed, as we'll see here in a second. Sorry. Yeah, it's just so crazy how badly they dropped the ball. They dropped everything. They might as well have just laid down on the ground and just been done with it day one. So lead counsel for the defense was Jose Baez, as though everybody in the entire planet Earth knows now that name. He is famed for this case, probably praised by fellow defense attorneys for creating such a fucking clusterfuck with Casey Anthony, and he was, of course, a Florida criminal defense attorney. Now, attorneys J. Cheney Mason, Dorothy Clay Sims, and Ann Finnell served as co-counsel, and during the trial, attorney Mark Lippman represented George and Cindy Anthony, because, of course, they were brought into this mess as well when George was accused of, just in the beginning. Now, wasn't he was brought on stand, asked about it, wasn't he? No, never.
No, he was mentioned in the opening statements and the closing statements, and never mentioned again during any part of the trial.
It's fucking ridiculous. So selection of the jury began on May 9th, 2011, which is 2 days before my birthday. So happy birthday to me. Oh, I'm sorry every fucking case takes place in May, in the early hours of May here. But that's 2 days before my birthday. And I was just about to graduate high school because I'm a baby. Now, so I do remember this very well, this case. Now, County Criminal Justice, this took place in County Criminal Justice Center in Clearwater, Florida, because the case had been so widely reported in the Orlando area. So they moved the case to a different county to see if they could get rid of some of the media attention. with the juror selection, which obviously that didn't work. Or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how. It's always been so shocking to me how people in such high-profile cases do get a non-biased jury, right? Because how in the world, especially like in OJ's case, how...
It's a false sense of security. They don't get unbiased.
Right?
It's a tactic used by either the prosecution or the defense, and it does nothing for the case, in my opinion.
I would totally.
We have too much exposure media-wise nowadays for you to be able to get away from.
There's like literally no way to.
You would have to be living under a fucking rock for somebody not to have heard of O.J. Simpson or Casey Anthony by this point, at least, where they were getting a jury pool that was totally unbiased or had.
Regardless, they could have fucking moved her to Italy, and so it wouldn't have mattered.
It would.
So, jury selection took longer than expected and ended on May 20, 2011, with 12 jurors and 5 alternates being sworn in. Now, the panel consisted of 9 women and 8 men. The trial took 6 weeks, during which time the jury was sequestered to avoid influence from the information available outside the courtroom, which, again, I don't think that would have done much to help at this point.
Not really, but they do it more for formality than anything else.
So, prosecution alleged an intentional murder and sought the death penalty against Casey, which we went over was probably one of the biggest mistakes that they made. Because, like you said, what was that term called?
Lesser known offenses.
Lesser known offenses. Why the fuck? I don't know. It seemed like they were very confident. They had a false sense of confidence in this case, I'd say. Well, everybody would say because of how this turned out. Prosecutors stated that Anthony used chloroform to render her daughter unconscious before putting duct tape over her nose and mouth to suffocate her, and left Kaylee's body in the trunk of her car for a few days before disposing of it. They characterized Anthony as a party girl who killed her daughter to free herself from the parental responsibility and enjoy her personal life.
Which I think we can comment on seems pretty consistent with how she acted after the fact that her daughter was missing, and also after the fact of her acquittal. I just want to point that out here.
True story.
That's not a false narrative.
No, not a false narrative at all. And I'll even add to it, I believe that little girl was the victim of jealousy. She was, at one point in her life, this is a side note, but I think it goes to motive, that at one point she was engaged to a gentleman who had at first been told that he was the baby's father, and it turned out was not. But he had, proposed to Casey Anthony. She had accepted the proposal. She later left him, and her reason for leaving him was that she felt like he cared more for the baby than he did for her. She was not going to be put in any way where she was going to be second to anybody. She was second to her own baby with her parents. She was second to her own baby in her eyes with her boyfriend who was going to be married to her. It is very likely that she killed this baby so that there would be no one that could ever take Casey's place as everyone's favorite fucking girl. That is fucking the most narcissistic thing. And that's what I believe. I believe that little girl died because that little girl was a joy in people's lives, and Casey was nothing more than a fucking burden on people.
I 100% agree.
That is a disgusting, probable truth.
It's true, and it's still to this day. It feels like she just can't keep herself out of the fucking Molly. Wasn't it? When was that interview that she did with who she did with? Was it Dateline? The interview she just did was like
the one that she just did. That was about, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago.
Where she was just like, I'm having like I sleep well at night. Like,
oh yes,
bitch,
yes.
What? And so she's like giggling and laughing through the interview. We'll talk about it.
No, it wasn't TMZ, but
no, it was who did the interview?
No, it was one of it was
It's like.
I don't know. It was like some crime TV.
Yeah,
TV
it was
network.
like crime something.
okay.
But it's like she just needs people to keep her in the spotlight. I 100% agree with you. I think that's the most probable scenarios, that she was jealous of her daughter. Her daughter was getting so much attention. Her daughter was loved. Her daughter was a light. Her daughter was really everything she isn't and wasn't. And she needed to get rid of that in one way or another. So that is something that the prosecution brought up. Now, the defense's their arguments were all over the place, and I think this is what caused so much confusion. The defense was led, of course, by Baez, and they claimed in opening statements that Kaylee drowned in an accidental drowning in the family's pool on June 16, 2008, and was found by George Anthony. And he told Casey she would spend the rest of her life in jail for child neglect, and then proceeded to help cover up Kaylee's death. That's what the defense opened with. It's just
That was their alternate view of the events.
Yep. Where do you think they can't, do you think they just saw a pool in the back? Because there was no evidence anywhere to suggest she drowned, right? Because there was no, I guess you said the elements could have played a part if, for whatever reason, if we want to pretend to believe that that's how it happened. But still, wouldn't they see water in the lungs?
No, there had been a overhead photograph of a news camera team during the initial investigation in the first couple days that showed an overhead view of the house and showed in the backyard that the ladder for the pool was down. That's where it came from. That and the fact that they had a photo showing that Kaylee was able to reach up and unlock the sliding glass door to the backyard and go into the back. So their argument was that mommy was asleep, nobody was home, that Kaylee let herself in the backyard, climbed up the ladder, fell into the pool and drowned. And reasonable doubt-wise, I could believe that. Now, as horrible as a person as Casey Anthony is, I could believe that as an accident that would happen. However, all of her behavior otherwise tells me that that's not what happened. I agree. Because anyone that makes that kind of mistake, including George Anthony, would have been able to come and tell it was an accident.
They would have reported it.
She was even given that out as an accident initially by investigators. She refused to take it because she wasn't going to have it any other way but her way.
That's just crazy. I honestly think about it even though it's like a 3-year-old girl, almost 3-year-old girl.
The most beautiful 3-year-old little girl that you'll ever see.
Well, I'm just talking about her age right now, saying that she's capable of going to the backyard, climbing up the ladder, climbing in the pool. Nobody noticed her? Yeah, mom was asleep, sure, maybe, but nobody noticed in all this time the kid opened the back fucking door.
Or she was sleeping or she was drugged up.
Come on, no. Even that doesn't make sense. Even that's negligible.
Well, yeah, it's negligible, but that's different than intentional murder.
Still, though, at the same time.
You're just a negligent parent. You're just a shit parent, but that's absolutely possible. People accidentally drown all the time. Kids will fall into pools and their parents won't know and walk outside, their kid will be drowning, and it's too late.
And when that happens, what's the first thing you do?
Well, I'm saying that.
No, you're right. I'm not arguing with you. Yeah, I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying those people call an ambulance.
That's what I'm saying.
That's right. The fact, her behavior after the fact is what negates that as a probable.
That's what he's saying. Right. Is that if that was true, someone would have called the police, or it would have been dealt with right then and there instead of this whole fucking we need to hide. So it was all of the behavior after that happening that negates that entire story because that's not how a rational human being who loves their child would react in that situation.
You take that. Right.
Did you draw a heart on the duct tape?
It was just there was a heart. It was heart duct tape, but that was not able to be corroborated when they went and did the test on the duct tape. They put stuff on it, but that was part of the.
But the duct tape was matched back to the Casey house.
Yeah.
The Anthony house.
This is just a mess. So Baez argued that this is why Casey went on with her life and failed to report the incident for 31 days, and he alleged it was the habit of a lifetime for Casey to hide her pain and pretend nothing was wrong because she had been sexually abused by George Anthony since she was 8 years old, and her brother Lee had also made advances toward her. So he was trying So he was trying to spin the fact that she didn't report it because that was something she was taught to do in life, just to keep everything quiet. Whereas in reality, it seems like she was really just learned how to be a manipulator. I don't think she was taught to hide anything. I think she was taught to be able to manipulate every single situation in the entire world that she's ever been in part of.
She was a master of that.
Yeah, and I think that's the only thing that her childhood made her guilty of, is they let her be this little monster manipulator and lie and get her way, and it seems like she was a spoiled brat. So, Baez questioned whether Roy Kronk, the meter reader who found the bones, had actually removed them from another location, and further alleged that the police department's investigation was compromised by their desire to feed the media frenzy about the child murder rather than a mundane drowning, which is what you touched on earlier, Jeff. You said there were so many things called into question, whether he moved the body, which is why the duct tape could not be corroborated as the cause of death. They pretty much are accusing him of tampering with the evidence, which calls into question what happened. where were these bones actually found? What happened here? He admitted that Casey had lied about there being a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, Doritos, Burritos, Cheetos.
Now, we're not being racist or being rude to anybody. Please don't take
No.
Yeah, we're gonna
You're gonna get
so much hate
angry
mail.
comments.
You're gonna get so much hate mail because of me.
No, we don't even want to hear your bullshit out there. It's a joke, alright?
Fucking relax. Breathe a little bit. You're on a fucking podcast about the worst fucking case ever here. Let's be real.
I have my buddy Eduardo call you guys and tell y'all to fuck off.
So prosecutors called George Anthony as their first witness, and in response to their question, he denied having sexually abused his daughter Casey, and then from that point on, this was never brought up again. Now, Anthony testified he did not smell anything resembling human decomposition, which completely goes against what he had originally said in the original 911 call, because it's heard. That's that's audio that we have. That's something that was physically said by Cindy and George. Oh, I don't know if George Anthony ever was on the tape saying it, but Cindy was.
Yeah.
She said it smells like there was a dead body in the trunk. Says it straight up to the police who she was on the phone with.
It's irrelevant because the guy working at the tow yard had claimed that him and George Anthony had a conversation about how it smelled like a body.
Yep. So he denied saying that on stand, which makes you wonder why. Was he really trying to protect Casey? Well, like you said, that's an unmistakable smell. Now, I've never personally smelled a rotting dead body. I have, however, been to cadaver labs, but those are also with formaldehyde and chemicals, so that's a way different smell. Yeah. So, like you said, and being a retired police officer, he 100% knew what he was smelling and knew exactly what it was. But for him to go back on it is curious to me, and I think it's in him protecting his manipulative bitch-ass daughter, even after her fucking defense team accused him of sexual abuse. Now, that's a father's love, or he's just, I don't even know. I think he was so manipulated by Cindy and Casey, and Cindy as well, because Cindy believed Casey. Or believed the bullshit. I don't know what she believed. What do you think? Why do you think he would go backwards and say, oh no, I never said it smelled like a decomposing body? Why would he backtrack?
I think you're right. I think he's the ultimate victim of the manipulation of Cindy and Casey.
Yeah.
He's manipulated and just completely puppet string pulled by those two women.
I don't think he wanted to implicate his daughter, but I don't think he wanted to admit it to himself what he thought originally to be true and didn't really have the guts to tell himself, you know.
Who wants to admit that their child's a freaking narcissistic murderer?
Right? Yeah.
And then not only that, but then implicate them in court, because ultimately he's getting called into trial to testify to that.
Right.
You know, so.
Right.
So it's interesting to note that Dr. Jan, I'm just going to call her Dr. Jan because I do not know how to say that last name. I don't even fucking care anymore. Great. So she is the chief medical examiner, and she stated in court, quote, we know by our observations that it's a red flag when a child has not been reported to authorities with injury, there's foul play. There is no child that should have duct tape on the lower part of its face when it dies. So that was important, and I don't know, what was the thing with the duct tape? I don't know why that didn't hold more weight. Is it because they called into question
it's because of the moving of the body actually negated anything that had to do with the duct tape. And that's it. That's the entire reason why the duct tape was thrown out.
Is that because they believe if the body was moved, it could have moved the duct tape's position on the mouth? Like,
yes.
What would that? Is that the reason it would negate it?
That's exactly why. Because he moved the actual skull of the man that found the body. Once he did that, anything having to do with anything that was connected to the body or near the body at that moment was brought into question. Once it's brought into question, it couldn't be put forth as evidence.
Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think?
Ask questions. Go ahead. Please.
Do you think had he not moved the body, and of course, I'm not blaming him at all. This has nothing to do with him. Really, he tried to report this 30 times.
He's been out to the site, right? Yeah, by now.
Do you think had he not moved the body, the prosecution would have been able to make a stronger case that would have led to a conviction, or do you think that still wasn't enough of a case to make around the duct tape part of it?
No, I think it's a case of house of cards kind of thing. It wasn't the sole thing that was going to make or break the case, but it's one of many things that just a drop of water is not going to break a rock, but water in mass quantities over a cylinder shape and change it as you find on a beach over time. This is an indication of that kind of theory, where it was just a multitude investigation. Bottom line is, like I said, everyone thought they had a rock solid, home run slam case. And everything from the handling of evidence to the arrogance of the prosecution all led to Casey Anthony being free out in the streets.
Jeff, my question for you: do we know how much, or I should say, how far or to the degree the skull was moved? I mean, was this taken off the site and put in a garbage bag and brought to his house, or did he just move it? Yeah.
No.
Are we talking? Did he move it like he nudged it to the side so he could?
Yes, it was literally a nudge to the side.
Yeah. Okay, so it's negligible then, but we're talking.
It's negligible. But when you're talking about a murder case,
everything counts, right?
Everything counts.
They had OJ's bloody sock in his fucking bedroom, and it didn't matter. So
right, they had his blood at the scene of the crime.
Right. Yeah,
But
exactly.
hypothetically,
And a
if he
white
did
Bronco,
it,
only 4 people drove white Broncos even in the 90s. So whatever.
did you watch his?
And three of them lived in Florida.
Yeah, right. And then there was just OJ. That was it.
It was interesting with the duct tape theory as well. It seemed as if the prosecution claimed that the duct tape was put on before death, therefore causing the death, and the defense claimed it was put on after death. But I don't understand that part either, because what did the defense think the duct tape was for?
The defense made the claim that the duct tape was placed on by the actual investigating authorities to keep the body and jaw in place while it was transported.
Oh, Matt and I are like, whoa. Holy shit, Jeff keeps dropping fucking bombs left and right.
Yeah, and after being law enforcement and doing investigations and everything, I can tell you that duct tape is never used as a means of securing body parts.
Yeah, like
ever. No matter how fucked up the investigation is.
Right.
So that's wild that kind of threw it for a loop. I don't know how much weight that held in a juror. That's don't get the Bob, give me the duct tape.
Get some fucking duct tape, damn it.
We're in the South. Get some duct tape. We're gonna hold his body together.
He's falling apart, man.
Our arm is getting a little loose. Please give me the duct tape.
Hey, man, fuck this body bag. Just keep that big ass one.
Hey, we use the duct tape to hold Gator's mouth shut. We use duct tape to hold his jaw on this body.
Oh my
God.
God.
Billy Ray, get the shotgun. He's opening up again. Damn it.
So
he's coming right at us.
I love that show, Swamp People. Oh
Swamp People. Okay.
Totally unrelated.
So the prosecution rested its case on June 15th after calling 59 witnesses for 70 different testimonies. And the defense rested its case on June 30th after calling 37 witnesses for 63 different testimonies.
I just want to throw this out there. Before you say the next part, because that is a hugely important thing. I'm not surprised they didn't want to run through this fucking thing again. And ask for him, like you pointed out, Jeff, they could have very easily asked for a mistrial. There were grounds for it. They could have asked for the judge to throw out the set. I mean, they could. There was grounds for that, for jury nullification. But I'm thinking they're sitting here going, my God, how long did this case take? Are we doing this again?
But at the same time, you think they want justice.
I think it's worse than that. I think they thought all the way up to the bitter end, as much as America thought, that she was going to be found guilty.
Yeah, true.
I think you're right. I think that's more, because I think that wouldn't make sense, because the whole fucking goal is to get justice for Kaylee. If they had grounds that they really believed to do
6 months, 60 witnesses, and 50 on the other side, and then you're talking about,
and that's 3 years after
the initial. Think about how many taxpayer dollars went into
and that's 3 years after the initial,
Exactly. I mean, this case, the investigation alone.
And it's important to note that Casey did not testify herself. And do you guys think that was a smart move on the behalf?
Fuck yeah!
It's always a smart move. It's always a smart move on the behalf.
Keep that bitch silent.
I wouldn't have let that bitch anywhere near the window. You can't even walk near there. I want you to walk away from that side of the courtroom, bitch. You're not even going near that thing.
Every time Casey Anthony opened her mouth up, lies spewed out like a rainbow.
Oh my God!
So, I mean, there was no way they were putting it. She was the source of those rainbow mouth memes.
I was literally going to say that mouth meme that you're talking about is coming to mind right now. Yeah.
That's exactly where it came from. That was Casey Anthony's, rainbow of lies.
The rainbow of lies. Oh my God, Jeff, you got to coin some of the things you come up with tonight. Man, honestly, there are a few patents in there.
Just tonight alone.
Copyrights that are golden.
Right?
there's the title of your episode.
Yes.
The Rainbow of
That's
Flies.
it.
Rainbow of Flies.
Somebody text that to me now. 'Cause I'm
I
gonna
will. We're gonna run back through this and find a few copyrights.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, give us the sentencing.
Sentencing. So, yeah.
Everything that went wrong right here.
Everything starts just
Wrong,
going
right.
downhill from here. We all thought it was fine until now. Up until like July 5th, we're all good.
Right on.
Then it goes
So,
fucking
verdict and
haywire.
sentencing. On July 5th, 2011, the jury found Casey Anthony not guilty on counts 1 through 3 regarding first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and aggravated child abuse, while they did find her guilty on counts 4 through 7 of providing false information to law enforcement. Count 4, Anthony said she was employed at Universal Studios during 2008 pursuant to the investigation of a missing persons report. Count 5 was Anthony said she had left Kaylee at an apartment complex with a babysitter, causing law enforcement to pursue the missing babysitter. Count 6, Anthony said she was informed of 2 employees at Universal Studios, Jeff Hopkins and Juliette Lewis. Juliette Lewis said that she wasn't there because she was busy making movies. And Jeff Hopkins, I don't think that guy exists.
I was smoking pot with Johnny Hopkins.
Anthony said that she had received a phone call and spoke to Kaylee on July 15, 2008, causing law enforcement to expend further resources. On July 7, 2011, sentencing arguments began. The defense asked for the sentence to be based on the count of lying on the grounds that the offenses occurred as part of a single interview with police dealing with the same matter, the disappearance of her daughter, as one continuous lie. So they said, hey, this all happened from one talk, so you can only charge her for one count. The defense also argued for concurrent sentences, that is, for all 4 counts to become one count and the sentence to be run together as one. The judge disagreed with the defense's arguments, finding that Anthony's statements consisted of 4 distinct, separate lies according to the sentences to be served consecutively, noting that law enforcement expended a great deal of time, energy, and manpower looking for Kaylee Marie Anthony. The search went on from July through December, over several months, trying to find Kaylee Anthony. Judge Perry sentenced Anthony to 1 year in the county jail and $1,000 in fines for each of the 4 counts of providing false information, and the maximum penalty prescribed by law. She received 1,043 days credit for time served, plus an additional credit for good behavior, resulting in her release of July 17th, 2011. Anthony filed a notice of appeal July 15th, 2011. So this fucking bitch, after getting off of murder,
Thank you.
after serving only 3 months of a sentence,
Thank you.
after killing her own daughter,
Appeal.
and lying to police and being caught bold-faced in that lie, fucking appealed the lies. This woman is either the most fucking arrogant, narcissistic bitch in the world, or she is my hero for just owning it. She is not gonna. I'm gonna take this to. Not only did I not kill my daughter, but I wasn't the second gunman on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
I can jump to conclusions.
I wish you had
and I
been.
can do all kinds of other shit.
Oh my
She's a maniac. This woman.
Honestly.
It fucking fires me up just thinking about the fact that this woman breathes the same damn air as the rest of us.
Right?
I'm like 99% with the former on you, and then like the 1% of me that's like, alright, bitch, I see, I
She
respect.
did this.
Respect. You went full out.
It's like Jesus, I gotta give her credit for being just fucking. I mean, she sets the standard for friggin' manipulators.
I know. Like, literally. My ex-girlfriend should be proud of this group. I'm a terrible person. If I there all you listen, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. See what I did? I'm good.
There's all kinds of stuff that came from the jury, and most of it just came down to the jury noticed that the prosecution made a very weak attempt. There were problems in the actual putting together of the case, but the aftermath. If you don't mind.
No, yeah.
No, man. Yeah, that's
take it.
where it really goes haywire.
The aftermath of this case, defense attorneys blamed the media for the extreme hatred towards Casey Anthony. I disagree. Casey Anthony is
Exactly.
the cause for
I
extreme
think
hatred
anyone
against
who
Casey.
harms a child immediately is hated. It doesn't matter what the media says. What media outlet has ever praised someone who has been accused or has been convicted or has been acquitted of murdering a child? No one.
You smacked this.
Right, so they called it media assassination of her before and during the trial, whatever. One defense attorney for Anthony said, I hope that this is a lesson for those of you who have indulged in media assassination for 3 years. Bias and prejudice, and talking heads saying that they would how things would be and how they should be. I can tell you and my colleagues from coast to border have condemned the whole process of lawyers getting on television and talking about the case that they don't know a damn thing about. They don't have experience to back up their words or the law on how to do it. Now you have all learned a lesson. And what is not inside this, and the quote next is, Casey, you can go ahead and put your pants back on. I think that was taken out. State's attorney Lawson Lamar said, "We're disappointed in the verdict today because we know the facts and we put in absolutely every piece of evidence that existed. This is a dry bones case. Very, very difficult to prove."
Are you kidding me, bro?
The delay in recovering little Kaylee's remains worked to our considerable disadvantage. Not just that worked to your disadvantage, Mr. Prosecutor, but your arrogance and lack of friggin' focus and attention to detail also had a lot to do with it.
Total
In
incompetence.
September of... Right, yeah. So in September 2008, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez sued Casey Anthony for defamation. During the investigation, Anthony told investigators that she left 2.5-year-old Kaylee with the babysitter, also known as Zanny, on June 16th, at the stairs of a specific apartment in the Sawgrass apartment complex located in Orlando. October 8th of 2011, Morgan, Zenania's lawyer, deposed Anthony via a video conference. Anthony exercised her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and answered only a couple of factual questions. Morgan felt that this was improper, but legal experts think that Anthony was well within her rights to plead the Fifth until her appeals to the convictions for lying to officers are exhausted. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in the aftermath. One thing I think is important for us to put out is Kaylee's Law. So Kaylee's Law is the unofficial name for a bill proposed or passed in several U.S. states that make it a felony for a parent or legal guardian to fail to report a missing child in cases where the parent knew or should have known that the child was in probable danger. In April of 2016, transcripts of the 2015 affidavits of private investigator Dominic Casey were filed in the court docket in the matter of Kronk versus Anthony and picked up by news services in May 2016. In the affidavit, Casey stated that on July 16, 2008, Baez admitted to him that Casey Anthony murdered Kaylee Anthony and dumped the body somewhere, and he needed all the help she could get to help find the body and get rid of it.
Bitch.
He also claimed that Baez had a sexual relationship with Anthony, and that Casey told me she had to do what Jose said because she had no money for her defense. Baez vehemently denies the sexual relationship, but says that he is currently getting all of his quell and shots up to date. That's not accurate. In 2011 trial, had more than 1,000 protesters who showed up to the Orange County courthouse. It's estimated that more than 40 million Americans watched at least part of the trial, and Anthony's name trended on Twitter for 27 consecutive days at the time a record. Many believe Casey Anthony garnered all the media attention because she was seemingly normal and a nice white girl. That's why she got so much attention.
Right, can you imagine?
I disagree with that also.
Jesus.
Can you imagine if she was any other race? What would have happened to this woman?
She'd have been guilty. Yeah, they did it. I mean, let's, I'm not somebody that goes and does the race baiting thing, but we all know that if she'd been anyone else besides a good-looking white girl, that girl would have been friggin' hung from the highest friggin' ceiling.
Right.
Somewhere.
Right. So,
and then finally, our favorite thing that we talked about was Casey Anthony's interview in 2007 with the Associated Press. She is quoted by saying, "I am still not certain as where I stand today about what happened. Based off what was in the media, I understood the reasons why people feel the way they feel about me. I understand why people have the opinions they do. Even if I would have told them everything that I told the psychologist, I hate to say this, but I firmly believe that I would have been in the same place. Because cops believe other cops. Cops tend to victimize the victims. I understand now. I see why I was treated the way I was, even if I have been completely truthful. Everyone has their theories. I don't know. As I stand here today, I can't tell you one way or the other. The last time I saw my daughter, I believe she was alive and was going to be okay. That's what was told to me. I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks about me, and I never will. I'm okay with myself. I sleep pretty good at night."
This.
Miss Anthony, if I could for a moment,
please.
I know that you can't help yourself but to go out into the internet and the inner spaces in between and listen to every single thing that anyone ever says about you. So I'd like you to listen very closely to what I'm going to say to you.
Oh God! Please tee this up.
You are the most despicable, horrific type of human being. That when I think about you, I think about people in Dachau. places like that murder Jewish people in mass quantities. You have zero remorse. You know what you did, but yet I do believe that you sleep good at night because you have no soul. You took a person and a beautiful little girl out of this world for whatever reason, because there is no good reason for it. And if you believe in God, or if you're a person who does believe in God, and even if you don't, I'm fairly certain that the universe, even if there is no God now, will create a special little place called hell to place you in, and you will burn for eternity there as much as you deserve. You are the foulest thing in the history of the world to me, taking that little girl out of this world. Any person that puts their penis anywhere near you deserves the that mass venereal diseases they're going to get from being near you. You horrible, despicable thing.
I second.
So we all just
Enjoy your evening, Miss Anthony. Enjoy your evening.
that was fucking beautiful, man. I want to
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That was beautiful, man.
Just fucking.
Truer words may never have been spoken.
So.
Oh no, they are. Somebody told me once that I was a very nice person and very
Humble and modest too, right?
I'm just kidding.
All right.
Yeah, modesty runs very deep inside.
Modesty runs in the family, right?
So let's talk about it, as we probably already know how we feel. Eye for an eye.
Jeff, please.
Take this away.
I got it.
Socially, in the way that she is going to have to hide for the rest of her life, eye for an eye, maybe. In the legal system and for the justice that Kaylee deserves, not even fucking close.
Amen to that. Do you think eye for an eye was met in the way that the defense won over the jury? Like, you think if the defense was, let's just pretend for a moment, was 100% truthful and honest, and what their version of events happened, do you think it would have been a fair sentence for her, or do you still think it was completely off?
If what they said was true and Casey Anthony is nothing more than a
legit
narcissist who can't even admit that she made a mistake and her daughter died by an accident, then yeah, because she is going to serve at the public opinion that she gets for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't believe that's what happened. I believe that she did actually have some nefarious friggin' things going to go on with her daughter's death. So. Yes, if the defense is telling the truth,
I like how you
distinguish
that.
I do think justice was served.
I like how you distinguish that, though, Jeff. There has to be some line that we draw. No, she was not given the correct sentence for murder. Yet at the same time, you think this bitch is walking down to the corner for a quart of milk without anybody throwing something at her?
Especially because she's still in Florida, and that's where this all took place.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, she to this day still lives with one of the private investigators because that's the only thing she's going to be doing for the rest of her life. And, I think what she's going to learn very quickly is that tight little butt and those good looks are going to go away as age comes around. And she's going to be an old woman who's got no one around her because she's going to be worthless. And once all these guys that are soulless douchebags to begin with, run through her like a train, no one's going to have any use for her anymore. And she's going to be alone. Because she can't even get her father to believe anything that she says anymore. And as a woman who doesn't even have her dad behind her anymore, you got nothing left.
Yep. Jeff, if I ever need to make somebody, feel terrible about themselves, and we need to,
we're going to call you.
Somebody verbally, we are ganging up on somebody verbally someday, man. Me and you.
Tear them to shreds.
Isn't that what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
We are. We totally are. But I wish you could sit in the room and hear all that we're saying.
Like Jeff said, she'll probably look it up and listen to it.
Vile, evil,
she's gonna hear this.
bitch. I wish you could hear. I hope you listen to this someday, you fucking evil bitch. If not,
no, she's got. I tell you what, man. I have no doubt in my mind that she is such a self-important and self-centered person that she's gonna listen to this.
I hope she does.
She's listening to it now.
Right? Yeah, right. She's hacked the computer. She's got my Russian spy on her side. So.
Well then, fuck you, Casey.
And then my other question that I had for you earlier was, as we talked about, she is out of jail in Florida where this all took place. She lives at one of the investigators? How does she live at?
She lives with one of the private investigators from the defense.
Wow.
So what a fucking mental case that guy must be. But I'm surprised personally, and maybe because she hasn't left her house, I don't know. that she hasn't been mauled on the street
Jumped, beaten up, right?
by someone who has nothing left to lose, doesn't give a fuck, is going to do some criminal shit anyways. I am so surprised. She hasn't at least been punched in the fucking face.
You don't think somebody was like, I'm about to go steal a car. I'm about to just kill Casey Anthony.
Yeah, get away.
Same breath.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Fucking get her all over with.
No,
I'm gonna
and I hope for God's sakes that no one does, because this woman's not even
Worth it.
Right.
Worth it.
Somebody
I
else
hope
spending
that's
their
what
life
people
in
think.
jail.
But I'm honestly surprised that hasn't happened, because even in prison, if you get convicted of any kind of child crime, or crime to do with any kid under the age of even 18, especially under the age of 10, you're not treated with any kind of, you're most likely going to die in prison by the hands of another inmate, not from age. So I'm I guess in prison you're dealing with kind of the worst of the worst people anyways, who have nothing left to lose, so that could be point. And I agree with you in saying that she's not even worth it. She's not worth someone giving up their freedoms to take justice out. But I'm surprised, I really am. I'm surprised that she has not been attacked.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, she's not in prison with those people, and she lives in a world where most of us are better people than she is.
Absolutely.
I don't know, man. If I ever bumped into her on the street, I might throw a back kick somewhere.
You be careful, man. You run into her in the street, she might friggin' drop you as Annex and friggin' put tape over your mouth.
And it's also interesting. I took a poll on our Facebook group page a little while ago, a few weeks before this recording, and I asked just straight up, what do you think happened here? Do you think the drowning thing was fact? Obviously, nobody answered yes to that.
No.
Do you think Casey Anthony purposely killed Kaylee? Do you think she accidentally killed Kaylee? And it was interesting. A lot of people believe it was an accident. A lot of people believe that Casey Anthony did something stupid, probably gave her Xanax or 17, and didn't intend for her to die, but she died. What are your thoughts on that? You do believe it was an intentional?
I believe that she's annexed her child to put the baby to sleep, so that she didn't have to look her baby in the eye as she suffocated and killed her child. I think she did it on purpose.
So you
fully agree with everything you just said, 100%.
on purpose, yeah.
For the exact reason he said it too, so that you wouldn't have to look her in the face.
If this had been an accident, in some way, there would have been some transition period of dealing with the fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
And she went straight to living the life she wanted to live, which was child free, partying it up, and pretending that Kaylee never existed.
You're right.
And so that's why I do not believe it was.
That's an amazing point, and that's something that I don't think people think about often. Obviously, because most of the people who answered this whole survey that I took said they think it was an accident, and then she went to the lengths to cover it up.
And it may have been. I may be wrong, but I mean, it's just my personal belief. I think that.
Well, and I think you make a great point, because at first I did kind of believe it. She did something stupid, something negligent to a kid. Yeah, they died as the result of it, and then she went to the lengths to cover it up. But now, if you're talking to you and really thinking about it even more, you're right. If it was an accident, if it wasn't something that she had at least thought about, because, I mean, let's pretend it was an accident. Even if it was an accident, you're right. The normal person will go through that oh fuck stage and then do something about it, and then call somebody, get some help, because even then you're saving yourself from a lifetime in jail. You're saving, you're attempting to save your child. Yeah, you might get thrown in the slammer for neglect or whatever the other case may be, but it's not going to be murder. You're not going to end someone's life. But I think if it was an accident, the second she realized Kaylee was dead, she was happy. It wasn't like oh shit. She was like, oh, I must have given her too many Xanax, but great. This worked out fine. This is perfect. I don't care. This is great for me. This worked out the way that I didn't necessarily intend, but now, fuck, it's a bonus. Is what I feel. But now, if you're talking to you, I do believe if there was any sliver of an accident in this, that something would have been done. Now, my other question to you before we wrap this up, all of you, do you believe, at what point do you believe, I guess is a better way to word it, that her parents knew or believe that this was something their daughter did?
No, I don't think her parents knew. I believe that her mother is one of these people that has a lot of the narcissism that Casey has. That narcissism that she has kept her from coming to grips with the fact that her daughter is this person. I really, honest to God, believe that her father is just as much of a victim. He is responsible for him allowing himself to be manipulated by these women. As we said earlier, he did try to commit suicide at one point, in my opinion, out of despair over what happened. And he has come to grips with where he now believes that his daughter absolutely has something to do with this nefarious. But I don't think her parents. I think that this is, honest to God, just her. And her parents were at first. I mean, you listen to the mom in those phone calls. She's looking for her granddaughter, and I believe that was legitimate. That wasn't fake. That was a mom. That was a grandma looking for her loved granddaughter.
I agree, especially in the times that she wasn't talking to the police, and you could just hear the background noise of her talking to Casey, saying, "I'm about to call CPS on your ass. You better produce my granddaughter today." So I 100% agree with you on that, because I know a lot of people throw around that they knew they had something to do with it. They were just trying to cover it up for Casey. So I was curious what your guys' opinions were on that. Now, do you agree with?
I absolutely do. I think. Well, I'll say this: there's different degrees of guilt and of ignorance to both of them. I believe that her mother eventually realized there's no way she didn't kill her. I think she definitely was manipulated to a certain point, but I think anybody with logic in their mind, at least some sense of
At one point, was just like, whoa.
Was like, whoa, okay, she did it. She definitely did it. But this is also my daughter, and I'm not giving her over to the police as a convict, basically handing her over a silver platter, saying, I think she did it, here's why. But
right.
I also believe that, she's culpable for part of that. You covered up a murder, like you said, accessory after the fact. You covered it up. You participated in covering up a murder. Whereas her father, I believe, Jeff said it best. The guy was
a victim too.
He was a victim. I mean, and I blame him for his own ignorance and willful ignorance to some degree. But at the same time, I think he was just a victim of manipulation of both his daughter and his wife, and of the media as well. And he kind of he let himself get played into being a child molester and did not say a word. And got potentially played into being an accomplice and did not say a word. And, at a certain point, I'll look at you and be like, dude, at what point are you going to stand up and say, okay, hold on, something's fucked up here?
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess you have to also
there's degrees of guilt and of ignorance on both of their parts, I think. So we have to give them some credit and take that credit away.
Give it, you would give it, you would take it away.
Matty has given, Matty has taken.
But, and a good point to make as well is, like Jeff said at the very top of the show, Casey had lied to them for, 2-3 years about where she was working.
Right.
For that bomb to be dropped at the same time, like, they believed their daughter was a hardworking woman at work every day, I'm guessing, whatever the schedule was, and then to find out that was a complete lie. Can you imagine how much of a clusterfuck that would be for them to take in, alongside the fact we're finding this out as there's an investigation because our fucking granddaughter is missing?
Right.
So I can't imagine even being able to take all of that in. Like, one at a time, that's hard being lied to for 3 years.
I just want to say this. My mom, if this was my mom, and after all this time, I'm like, Mom, look, I don't know where the kid is. I don't actually work there. I'm not sure what the hell I've been doing. I've been partying a lot. She'd be like, well, good luck with everything. You're probably fine. And would sell my ass up the river so fast and would want to know where my child was and how she could best take over control of that child's welfare, if that was still a possibility. There's no fucking way my mother would ever sit there and defend me in court if she knew for a fact that I had participated in killing anyone, especially my own child, her grandchild. I'm just saying, my dad, he probably would have tried to climb over the fucking gallery and shoot me himself.
That's why I don't believe that they believed it. I think that they were ignorant to it.
And we got to take that into account. My mom and dad, I can tell you right now, they'd have been the first ones to ensure that justice was done.
Although, I don't know if you know about this case, but I'd love to have you on when we cover it, because it's definitely going to be when we cover it. I don't even know if Matt knows about this case. But if you heard the case about Peter Porco,
Peter Pepper.
No.
Basically,
But good use of alliteration.
Thank you. I was thinking Donnie Darko too. That was the first.
I hate you. But I mean, we're gonna get into detail on that case a little later down the road. It's gonna be an episode because it's astounding. But it's one of these cases where basically this kid asked his parents, took an axe to his parents while they were sleeping. The mom survived completely disfigured. She's completely disfigured. But the curious part about the case, well, a bunch of curious parts about this case, the one part of it is the dad was axed to oblivion, and I guess the axe severed a part in his brain where he went into autopilot, and he walked around his house axed, literally face torn off, axed. It's gruesome. It's horrible. You'll have to look it up. Went about his day. There was evidence to show that he unloaded the dishwasher, went outside, axed, completely just not aware that he was bleeding profusely and dying. Eventually passed out on his front porch. But basically, when the investigators found this family axed, I said it again. Shut up, bitch. Basically, the mom, who has no recollection of this, said, they asked her, who did this to you? And they said, was it your son? Or whatever, they went through a list of people, and she shook her head when it got to the person who did it, who was her son. However, now, she stands by him tooth and nail. She doesn't think he should be guilty of this crime. She's one of his biggest supporters. She's one of the people advocating for him to be out of jail. She leads the campaign. She leads everything. She is an advocate for her son, and I think it's a testament to your love for your child. I mean, maybe she really doesn't remember because she was so badly disfigured. However, at that point, she was cognizant enough to implicate him in the crime. And it's interesting to think, how far does your love for your kid go? Would you help them theoretically get away with murder? And a lot of questions I pose to our listeners as well is if your kid committed a crime. It's hard to say, obviously, because it's a hypothetical, but what stance would you take? Would you back your kid up? Would you try to get them off? Or would you be like Matt said, his parents would probably shoot him? Would you back your kid up? Or would you want them to get the sentence that they deserved? And I'm curious to hear your opinions on that as well as, your kids.
I would recognize the fact that my child and the way they behave is a reflection of my parenting. And so I would make sure if the justice system did not give my child the justice they deserved, then I sure as fuck would.
Yeah, that's your parent.
That's my man.
My mom believes everything anyone says but me. So she would be like, she did it, fuck it, bye. If anybody ever went missing that was in relation to me, say I was Casey Anthony and Kaylee went missing, day one my mom would have put my ass in jail and thrown away the key. Now let me explain. My mom doesn't give a fuck what I have to say. She's just like, you did it. You did it. You had to have fucked something up. It's you. Yeah, so that's the Casey Anthony case. It's been a really wild fucking ride.
10 years later, we still don't know what the fuck happened here.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, you're right. We do. Oh, no. We know exactly what happened.
Well,
We don't know how the hell this happened.
Yeah. We don't know how the hell she got off.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident I know what happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, I want to thank you guys for letting me come on. This is this is gonna be one of your longest episodes.
Thank you. This
But it's going to be one of our best.
One of our best. This was great. We definitely have to do this again.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. Great conversation. This, we could literally go on for hours about this case.
Honestly, I mean, we
have.
here for a while. Yeah.
We have gone for hours. I would keep going on for hours with you guys, but I do have work.
Yeah,
If it wasn't Tuesday, I'd definitely pop with, I'd pour some wine and sit here and go, I'm like, this fucking bitch, she also, for hours, man.
But thank you so much for being with us today. Like I said, we'll have you back anytime you wanna come join us.
And I'm getting it at least one episode together. I'd love to be a guest spot. Dude, holy shit.
Well, thank you so much for your service again. Thank you for servicing us with your amazing opinions on the Casey Anthony case today. Thank you for dealing with our bullshit technical problems because
no, not a problem. It's not a big deal.
We're a disaster. But thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Jeff, it was a pleasure, my brother. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, guys.
All right,
You do the
bye.
same. We appreciate it.
Circuit Court for the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. State of Florida versus Casey Marie Anthony. As to case number 2008 ZF 15606-0. As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict is to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 6. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 7. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson.